Hello everybody, this is your friendly neighborhood Titan here, and I'm bringing to you the Black Desert Online Beta Episode 7. So right here, you see, we're outside of the house now. I always liked the music of this game, it always kept you quite invested. That and the leveling. There's that furniture again. That pearl shop didn't work during the beta. It was kind of a letdown. I'm pretty confident somebody that's a journalist or whatever had access to it, but it wasn't wasn't accessible by everybody else that was making a review for the game. You had to make sure to grab those every day, or you just missed out of them. That blew a bit, but this was free stuff you got from the beta. And by blue, I mean it sucked if you didn't claim that every day because you missed out on some pretty awesome stuff. There are quite a few items in here. So you have tonics and food, and then there's probably a third cooldown thing, but basically your tonics don't last very long, but your food lasts like literally hours. So I would, whenever it came down to fighting big groups of enemies, like the kill quests, where you have to kill like 80 or 100 or something like that of a certain enemy, I would proc that potion, and then I'd also eat the silky milk tea, and it would actually I would drink the silky milk tea later on in the future when I figured out everything that they were doing.
What is your name?
And
she's sad because she's broken-hearted.
What kind of person is Isabel?
it'd last long enough for me to
I have a sickness that doesn't allow me to recognize faces.
You'll regret it for life.
Tell me if there's any trouble.
level when I needed it the most. Even then, after all of those efforts, like
Don't you worry,
learning
sister. I'm here for
that
you.
stuff, spending just enough time to
Looks
figure out
like
what
they're
it
in
does,
trouble with the Jean Church again regarding the street tax.
I ended up
Tastes good.
I have decent goods. What is it that you need?
messing up every now and then.
It must be tough for the League of Merchants.
Always get at least one of all the improved things if you have the room. I learned later on that it was pretty
My
dumb not
sister
to
is
have
not
it.
a crybaby.
What kind of person is
She's
Isabel?
sad because she's broken-hearted.
I tried to find something more substantially useful as far as tools
Tell me if
went
there's
when
any
it came
trouble.
down to a hoe.
He'll regret it for life.
You'll see later on in the episode that this one's mostly about gathering mushrooms.
Looks
So-
like they're in trouble with the Jean Church
Don't
again
you worry.
regarding...
As you can see, the back of my horse is no longer
Is
clogged
it a
up
craft
by...
order? Or a repair, perhaps? Leave them all up to me.
That's another really neat feature of the game. You can repair everything in your that you have equipped. Or
You
your
can
inventory.
entrust your goods without worry, since it's an official trade zone approved by the head of the Merchant Guild.
And this was also a good example of something you should try to do in the game is if you have something that's beat up or its durability is low, you're better off repairing it because you can't sell stuff that has low durability, as you saw in the last episode. So whenever you repair it, you can put it up for sale and you can get a good bit of money out of them. the stores sell them for like 100,000 a piece, and you could sell it for half of that and still make a generous profit. Because when you sell it to the merchants, it's only worth 12,000, even though they sell it for 100. I can't remember right off the top of my head how much I sold this for. 84,000. See, it's just nuts. The buyer saves well over 20 grand of silver, and you make 70-ish thousand more than you would have if you sold it to a vendor. People always, like, I've noticed, even I went to go check on a computer and stuff like that, people brag about the vendors on this, and the vendors are really not the best buyers of things. Let's see. I put this staff up for sale, but for some reason it just, I mean, it is pretty expensive, and if the only buyer that was around was beta players for PS4, I imagine a very limited amount of people are going to be buying.
You won't lose out if you trade through me.
That's also something I thought was neat, is that actually is accurate. Usually you'll hear that from a game and it'd be completely wrong. Have to do a double check, but like, wait a minute. Is this woman lying to me? Triggers 50 people. Did you just assume it's gender? It's a girl. We both know it's a girl. It's a girl. I think that would be what most people would consider a halfling at this point. I don't know exactly what it is. Like an elf mixed with a halfling. But there isn't just any normal halflings unless it's that. Sometimes you expect auto run or whatever you're doing to turn out better, but it didn't.
If you have a lot of stuff, leave it with me.
Never really understood the container. I'll have
Within
to
your
look into
allowed
that
space,
later.
of course.
I'm pretty confident it's still like 10 contribution points. Also, take a note, whenever you store something in a warehouse, that warehouse is going to be the one that holds it. Only way to get it at another warehouse is to transport it, but you have to be at the certain warehouse to transport to the other warehouse. That's why I sent everything to Hydol. That was coffee on, I sent it to Hydol. If I couldn't send it to Hydol, I ran down there and then brought it back to Hydol. You need to pick a city that you wish to live in, preferably the one that's best for your crops, if you're going to be making money that way. And then, you know, hang with it. Hunker down, make tons of money, and turtle the crap out of it, and then eventually you can start getting involved in PvP and stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend it until, I'm pretty sure the game itself wouldn't recommend it either, until you were level 50 something, 55, 60, something like that. Not really sure what the max level is in this game, and that always annoyed the crap out of me. To be honest with you, I never really understood why my mount kept malfunctioning like that. It was so much fun getting thrown. But messing with the skills I didn't quite fully understand. Keep in mind, all this shit I'm doing, pardon the language, all this stuff I'm doing is first experience. I'm having to feel my way through everything. Alright, so this is Glish. front guard.
The Fogans! Yeah, they're right irritating ones.
I think that's Frogman. There are quite a lot of races in this game.
Storing is the first step of a safe journey.
Besides the reindeer people, that's what I'm gonna call them. I haven't ran into anybody else I would consider a beastman. So there's so for transportation, you have to make sure that you have enough silver set aside in of the warehouse to send a transportation wagon, send a wagon to transport whatever you wish to send to another city. Well, at least their city's warehouse. One thing that I thought was super annoying is, like, if the node isn't connected up through your contribution points, it's triple the amount they're going to charge you. So I kept on messing with this, trying to figure it out, and of course I couldn't, because I didn't know that I needed to store silver into this to send it.
Where you from, huh? Where you from? Welcome.
Trolls, goblin, pig people, just so many people. Of course you have your armor and your arm smith. Blacksmith and your armor. Arms dealer and your armor smith. So, I'm trying to find a mushroom cave in this area. There's 2 of them that I know of. There's a 3rd one, but I didn't really care for it since you don't really need the 3rd one unless you're unless you're farming truffle mushrooms. Ask somebody if that was like the most valuable mushroom. They said it's the rarest. So that's going to translate to the most valuable at the end of the day. I'd hope anyways. If you have low amounts of resources where people are having a very hard time finding it, and it doesn't grow too terribly often, I'd say that would be the most valuable. Probably not most valuable per hour, but most valuable per sale. There was a lot of these mud people and Naga people, which are basically, they're not catfishmen, but they're like, yeah, they're like fishermen, like deep fishermen. So I was looking around, I was trying to figure out where on earth this cave could be, because I've never been to it before. Open this, right about there, right where that curve hits, is where this cave is. So you have the glass ruins up that little zigzag path, and then you have, so I'm checking these rocks here, because the entrance to the cave is by a bunch of rocks, but when you know you found it is when you see that wagon. See if, I think it's right about, okay, yeah, I'm still checking the ridge to see if I can find it. Thought that was it, and I was like, nope, that was wrong. Just ticked off one of those mud people. that dwarf right there, there's the wagon, and if you look so closely in that crevice there, there's the secret hidden mushroom cave. So the problem with this was I wasn't really expecting the spider to be that close. So I instantly started saying, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. Of course it follows me out here and gets obliterated. Ah, there's the Naga guy. That actually spit the crap out of me. There's another spider. So you got two spiders, and then there's something that turns red down here in the water. I don't know what it is, and for some reason it doesn't seem to attack you. So after you get through that crevice, there's a second crevice and a third crevice. This looks like to be some ore. I didn't ever give it a shot, so you can tell me what it is down in the comments when you use a pickaxe to pick it up. Then in this crevice is the mushrooms. So you got your assorted cloud mushroom, the ancient mushroom. I was really aiming for a cloud mushroom and an ancient mushroom hypna, which is basically just a spore for them, so you can produce them. I was looking all over. I was really hoping that I had gotten what I needed from it. Those are truffle mushrooms right there. Those purple looking ones, you have to have level 4 or 5 gathering skill. And this is, I'm just now starting on trying to gather mushrooms in particular. And you'll probably want a magic hoe for when you come to collect those mushrooms. One thing I figured out later on in the future is that you can actually crack a potion that increases your gathering speed and your gathering XP, which I used later. I was so confused as to why I could not harvest those, and it's because there is a tier lock on it. You gotta be like a tier 5, level 5 gatherer, which was super rough. Somebody also mentioned like there's a hedgehog that helps you to collect them, so I'll probably know more whenever the actual game comes out. Another thing you may have seen while watching my gameplay is pets. You definitely want a pet for later on in the story and when you get the higher levels, because they auto-collect enemy drops, and those can be moderately valuable. You get 60 drops that are worth like 3,000 apiece. Stuff adds up. So right here is where I lose track of where I'm going. It is possible this could happen to you. I had no intention on going further into this cave. Luckily, you can always just hit the mount waypoint, and depending on where it makes you run, you tend to get a good idea of where you ought to run. You can get a good idea of where to go next. It's always so annoying for those who respawn so fast. I'm gonna put a jump in here to the next cave. I can just get... Oh no, that's another Nogam. Did he teleport back? Okay. This game has some weird stuff that happens. Pretty confusing. Alrighty, now that everything's back on track, I'm trying to remember exactly where this cave is. This is actually my first time coming to it, so I end up making a bad waypoint, which all you need to know is from that wagon in this direction. You see that tree that I'm about to come by right now? If you take a left from that tree, you'll see these willow trees and this rock formation and that flag. And then down from that is the cave. So here's the second end cave. Just go down in there. I was expecting something to fight, but I really didn't see anything. So you got a blue fur mushroom, a hump mushroom. The hump mushroom, ghost mushroom, ancient mushroom, and cloud mushroom seem to be selling for the most. So if you're trying to make like a mushroom farm early on and want to make the most you can, I would suggest trying to farm those first. And then move on to truffle mushrooms, and I think there's one called a rainbow mushroom. Sadly, I didn't get a lot of time to experience how to make the garden profitable, but from what I could tell, all the other mushrooms were not as profitable as the other ones, even from selling them to vendors. Vendors would give you more money for the other mushrooms than the ones that I mentioned. Like, the ones that I mentioned are the most valuable as far as to a vendor. He sold it to a vendor one at a time. Fog mushroom is a waste of your time, and so is the dwarf mushroom. I don't know what they're used for. I mean, if you use them personally, they may not be, but if you're just trying to get silver out of the transaction, then I wouldn't go after them personally, unless like the market really needed them, so people are more likely to buy them. Me myself, I'm not an alchemist, so and I haven't looked into alchemy at all. I know that the truffle mushrooms are needed in alchemy pretty heavily from the person I watched that gathered those up, but I don't know about all the others. So I'm up here checking to see if there's any nodes. Sid went to hay, went ahead and grabbed the hump mushroom. So you can gather these barehanded or with a hoe. I highly suggest harvesting them with a hoe. I don't even think I have mine equipped. So you're not likely to get a spore or a seed from any plants that you're gathering without a hoe. So keep that in mind. It will save you a lot of trouble when you're starting out. And you'll want to activate your potions that speed up gathering and all the stuff like that. That and whatever gathering XP food you have, you'll want to take advantage of that. At this point, somebody invited me. Oh yeah, it was my brother. I was like, I had a couple invites during the game. Like one to a guild, I could have swore another one was to somebody's party I ignored. Because I didn't really want to interrupt the footage that I was putting in. So now that I've showed you both the caves, and all you got to really do to escape this cave is just jump your way out. I'm gonna put a little jump in here to show you the end result. So all these mushrooms and those hypnas, those spores basically, were the result of that cave. You can pause the video to get a good idea of what all I ended up hauling out of it. And then you run back to Glish and you get rid of all the stuff that's, you know, clogging up your inventory now. Anyways, y'all, it's been so much fun making this for you and having Yins be with me on this journey that I went through. Don't forget, there are links down in the description. They go a very long way at helping the channel continue, and thank you for all you that subscribe. That also helps. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much, and bye.